I will brief you a little bit on what was going on inside. It is still actually going on. The Secretary General made a statement, followed by the Special Representative, his Special Representative, Brahimi. Then I took the floor and I made a statement on behalf of my own government. I had a couple of remarks with regard the position taken by both the Secretary General and his Special Representative. Number one, in both statements, there were no one single word or hint to terrorism. Terrorism, which is, as you know, ravaging my country, destroying the infrastructure, kidnapping bishops and nuns, killing sheikhs in the mosques, attacking civilian airlines, airports, oil and gas transportations, aqueducts, oleoducts. So in both statements, there were no reference whatsoever to the presence of terrorism in Syria. That was my first remark. The second remark was that both statements condoned or ignored on purpose or not on purpose, I don't know, that in Syria we are not confronting only what they called opposition. Oppositions, actually, they said. We are dealing with, yes, of course, we need national, legitimate opposition inside Syria. Every country needs this kind of opposition, but we don't need armed groups transformed into oppositions by somebody who is supposed to represent the highest spheres of influence, morally and politically speaking, in this organization. So, armed groups, terrorist groups, have been transformed out of a sudden into oppositions in Syria. While we all know that Daesh, Al-Nusra Front, Al-Qaeda, the Islamist front, established by the Saudi intelligence, as you know, are all entities enlisted on the list of the Security Council on entities sponsoring terrorism. Still, both statements condoned or ignored, as I said, making any reference to these terrorist groups operating inside Syria and killing thousands of Syrians. 3, both statements did not mention anything about the extremely negative impact of the unilateral coercive economic measures, called, wrongly speaking, sanctions, imposed on us by some Arab countries, by the European Union, United States, etc., etc. As if the Syrian people are not suffering from these coercive economic unilateral measures. So they are talking a lot about the suffering of the Syrian people, which is true. But they don't go beyond this description. We need a deep analysis of the reasons of the suffering of the Syrian people. One of the reasons are these coercive economic unilateral measures that we condemn as member states in this organization every year in 2 draft resolutions, collectively, except maybe United States because of the boycott imposed on Cuba, and maybe Marshall Islands or whatever, Kiribati, but the whole membership of the United Nations condemns every year imposing unilateral coercive economic measures as illegal and contravening and violating the provisions of the Charter. Still, both statements, although they spoke about the suffering of the Syrian people, they forgot for some reasons to make any reference to these coercive economic measures. There were, of course, the very suspicious role played by the Qatari regime during all the crises, especially lately speaking, when the Qatari regime paid millions of dollars to the kidnappers of the nuns in Yabrud in violation of the Security Council Resolution 2133, I think, that prohibits paying a ransom to the terrorists. The Qatari regime did it. They paid money to Al-Nusra Front, the terrorist entity enlisted on the Security Council list. They paid millions of dollars to Al-Nusra Front. But nobody is hearing. But nobody is hearing about all these very serious developments. Those who are not ready to listen to what I'm saying, they can leave. They can leave. It's my press conference. It's not yours.
You didn't call it, Ambassador.
It's not yours.
When are the elections going to be held?
It's my press conference. It's not yours.
Can you give us
You can leave.
The press conference.
You can leave.
The election.
Other points.
Secretary General's press conference.
Other points were also raised in the meeting, and I addressed the special representative himself by advising him to behave and to act neutrally, objectively, genuinely speaking, without taking side, without being biased. And that was the mainly speaking. Of course, we spoke also about the disruptive and destructive Saudi role played inside Syria through sponsoring the terrorists, called jihadists, by the way, according to the Saudi sheikh and fatwas. Bunch of criminals, mercenaries collected from all over the world, sent to Syria through our border with Turkey and Jordan and Lebanon, and they called them jihadists. Jihadists because their main role is to destroy the Syrian state, to kill the Syrian people on behalf of religions, as if we are infidels. They are only the real believers. The Saudis are the real believers in this world. Everybody else is about infidels, and they should be killed. Whether they are Muslims or non-Muslims, they are the only truth holders in this world. The Saudi ambassador may argue with you by telling you that the Saudi regime issued a decree asking the terrorists to get back from Syria. This is not enough. The Saudi regime is held accountable to the Syrian people. There should be accountability for what they did, and they should pay for that. I'm in your hands.
كان لديكم اعتراض أمس أو اليوم في وزارة الإعلام أو الخارجية حول تدخل الإبراهيمي في موضوع الانتخابات والتحدث عن الانتخابات. هل ذلك ضمن ولايته ولماذا احتجيتم على مداخلته أمس؟
كلا، لم يكن هذا وليس هذا جزء من ولايتي، ولقد لفت عنايته الآن في نهاية بياني إلى ضرورة أن يتوخى الحفاظ واحترام ولايته، الحفاظ على ولايته واحترام أحكامها.
ألا تزال تؤمن بوساطة
قلت
الإبراهيمي؟
في نهاية بياني أننا نرحب باستمرار مهمته ونتمنى له النجاح.
الآن وقد أقر البرلمان قانون الانتخابات في سوريا اليوم، هل لك أن تخبرنا عن موعد مثل هذه الانتخابات؟
الانتخابات يحددها الدستور. الدستور هو الذي يحدد الانتخابات، وهذا أمر شأن داخلي لا علاقة لأحد به على الإطلاق. طبعا تموز، حزيران تموز.
Mr. Ambassador, when is...
You didn't leave?
No, I didn't leave. I wanted to ask you a
welcome.
question.
Most welcome on board.
Thank you. I have two questions. The U.S. ambassador tweeted during Mr. Brahimi's remarks that he said that Syria was not interested in talking about political transition, only terrorism. You know that Mr. Brahimi has asked for parallel talks on both issues. Can you say yes or no? Is Syria opposed to parallel talks?
I know that you are a seasoned reporter and an experienced journalist, but I don't like this way of saying yes or no. This we said in the court. I will explain to you, and I said it inside. Unfortunately, the whole session was not broadcasted, as I said at the beginning. This is why you didn't catch what I said. The agenda proposed, the draft agenda proposed by Mr. Al-Brahimi in Geneva included 4 items. Item 1, putting an end to violence and combating terrorism. Item 2, the transitional government. Item 3, the state's institutions. Item 4, national reconciliation. So he chose himself to put combating terrorism as item 1. He chose himself to put combating terrorism as item 1 because he felt that combating terrorism is a priority for the Syrian people in order to solve the Syrian crisis peacefully and politically speaking. We said okay from the beginning to this proposal. The other side did exactly the opposite. They started misinterpreting the meaning of combating terrorism, and this is where things got stuck. Now, the issue of having parallel tracks. You cannot have parallel tracks between 2 important items, 2 major items, unless you have a common reading of what's going on inside Syria by both delegations. I need the other side to acknowledge the presence of terrorism in Syria before discussing with me the future of my own country. This is the point. It's not that we are trying to avoid dealing with the transitional government. On the contrary, we agreed on that. We said, okay, but let us first deal with the priority of the priorities, which is combating terrorism. How the Syrian people should deal with Daesh, Al-Nusra Front, Al-Qaeda organization, the Islamist Front established by the Saudi intelligence. These are the priorities. These people are undermining the infrastructure in the country and killing Syrians by thousands, either through military attacks or through the suicide bombings or the booby cars. So this is a priority. It is not just talking for talking. It's a priority for us. Thank you.
Ambassador, you said in your opening remarks you'd asked the Joint Special Representative, I think your words were, to behave. Are you unhappy with the... that's what I thought I heard. Yeah, I think you said in your opening remarks you'd asked the Joint Special Representative to behave and be impartial. Are you unhappy with the way he's performing his role? And a connected question to that, is his role harder because of now the Crimea crisis? And how does that impact the situation in your country?
I just reminded him the way we do it with all special representatives. We and others did it with other special representatives. Special representative for children in armed conflict, sexual violence, etc., etc. We do it because we need to draw their kind attention to the fact that they should be objective, genuine, unbiased, which is a part of their mandate. They should respect their mandate. Sometimes the special representatives they go beyond their mandate. So you need to remind them that, guys, you have limits. Don't go beyond these limits. This is the issue. Thank you.